If you're a sports fan, this next story is like the equivalent of a blockbuster trade or perhaps a big-time coaching hire for a slumping team in need of a new playbook. Starbucks shares surging today after the coffee chain named Brian Niccol as its next chairman and CEO. Niccol, who had been the CEO of Chipotle since 2018, will join Starbucks on September 9th. The move is having the opposite effect on Chipotle stock. You can see down about 6%. Joining us now is Peter Saleh, BTIG Managing Director, to break it all down. Peter, I want to start with your reaction from the Starbucks perspective. What do you think Brian Niccol can bring to Starbucks here? Is there a piece of what he's done at Chipotle that is perhaps directly applicable to that situation at Starbucks?
Yeah, great. So thanks for having me. Well, I guess right out of the gate, he's added $18 billion in market cap to the company.
Not bad for a day's work, right, Peter?
Not bad for not even stepping foot into the headquarters quite yet. So not too shabby. On a different front, on a more serious front, look, I think he has a lot of experience, and he's going to bring with him, one is a lot of investor confidence, and he's going to get the leeway to do the things he needs to do to improve this business. I can't really think of many other great leaders to lead this company aside from Howard Schultz. Brian would be the next one in line. So I think he's got the experience. He's going to have the investors behind him. I think it's going to take some time, but I think he can make some changes. He's going to have to make some changes in China, have to make some changes in the U.S. business in terms of throughput, maybe some changes to their digital and loyalty program. Got a lot of work to do, but I think he's the right fit for this company at this time.
And that seems to be the consensus for sure, Peter. So some of the changes that you mentioned, I'm curious, what are some of the things he's done at Chipotle that maybe not directly transferable, but are the things that are going to be the most useful for him when he goes over to Starbucks?
So we felt like the changes he made at Chipotle were very much the QSR playbook in terms of investing in drive-thrus, the Chipotle lanes, something QSR does very well, a lot of drive-thrus. He invested in that, started in 2018, 2019. 80-90% of their development today is drive-thru development at Chipotle. Two, he invested behind national advertising. They didn't do national advertising in the past. He put more money behind that. That has worked. That has been a tremendous success for them. Three, he invested behind their digital and loyalty program. They didn't have a loyalty program. They didn't have a lot of digital ordering. Now they have it. That has been another huge success for them. These are all things that Starbucks already has. So he's got to take it to the next level at Starbucks. It's not going from zero to something. He's going to be going from, a pretty well-established brand. He needs to make some tweaks to push it forward. And again, I think those tweaks are going to have to be on the rewards program. They're going to have to be on throughput, and they're going to have to be in China, in our opinion, if he's going to really move the needle on earnings here. Yeah,
throughput, definitely something that needs to be worked on. Peter, I also want to ask you, in my humble opinion, Starbucks food, needs some work. Chipotle food's pretty good. So I have to wonder if that's something he's also going to tackle in terms of quality.
So I think for decades, investors and consumers have been saying, Starbucks food is not the greatest. The challenge here is they have a very constrained kitchen with only equipment to heat. So unless you're going to make the stores and the kitchens larger, which I think is going to be even a much greater challenge, I'm not sure how you really solve that issue in our view. But look, I think, Howard came back over a decade ago and made changes, and he improved it. Maybe there's a way for Brian to take it to the next level. But again, I think they have some constraints around the size of the kitchen overall.
Peter, I'm curious, you mentioned the pop that we've seen in the stock off the top here, right? I mean, the stock's already almost at your price target of $100, it's up to $93 right now. How should investors think about this executive change? How long does it take to come through into earnings, into driving same-store sales growth back again? How should investors be thinking about how patient they need to be to see results here?
Yeah, so I think you really do need to be patient. I don't think you're likely going to get much of an update on the strategy from Brian until maybe early 2025, calendar 2025. And at that point, he's going to need a year to 18 months before you start to see the fruits of the investments that they're making and the changes that they're making. So I don't think this is a 1 or 2 quarter ordeal. I'd love to be proven wrong. I think this is going to be a longer, call it year, 18 months type process from where we sit today.
Peter, let's switch to the implications for Chipotle of all of this, right? So they get an interim CEO, someone who is there already. Jack Hartung, who is in the process of retiring as CFO, is going to stick around a little bit longer. But, Niccol has been so intertwined with the company. You think of him maybe not quite as like Schultz and Starbucks, but certainly he has been the one that people have held responsible for the success of Chipotle. So what does his leaving mean?
Well, my sense is that Chipotle will have a laundry list of great candidates that are interested in taking this job. So if the board doesn't feel like Scott is ready or the right person for the CEO role, I'm sure they'll have lots of other candidates to choose from. This is a fantastic brand that is on great footing with a lot of tremendous growth ahead of them. So I'm not so worried about Chipotle. Again, they've got a pristine balance sheet with several billions of dollars of cash sitting on the balance sheet. They're growing units, high single digits, on their way to double digits. They're at record margins, record sales, and record earnings. So in our view, I'm not really worried about Chipotle. I think they will need to figure out who's going to be their next round of leadership. But my sense is that the board have confidence that the board will figure that out in short order.
And Peter, I've heard that take from several analysts today, but I'm curious, it seems like the risks have at least gone up to Chipotle stock, right? I mean, how do you evaluate that? I think about maybe even we look at Starbucks, the other company we're talking about, when their long-term CEO, Howard Schultz, left, they've had fits and starts of bringing Howard back, right? Because they've struggled to put in a new person that's successful. And sometimes that management structure isn't just plug and play, even if it's very well set up now. I mean, how much more risk is there to Chipotle as a stock today than there was yesterday?
So there's always risk when you're swapping out, when you lose your CEO and your CFO who's been there for over 2 decades. But again, I think they have a deep bench on the finance side, on the operations side, folks that can step up into these roles. Look, this is in my opinion, a simpler model than Starbucks. It's a company-owned business model with plenty of capital. There's no licensed or franchise units. There's only a handful of international units. And the cash-on-cash returns, when you're talking about 60, 70% cash-on-cash returns, in our opinion, the business is very healthy. So, there is some modest risk from losing your executive team. But, again, I think they will find a way to replace them and move forward with this is just a speed bump in our view for Chipotle.
Peter, good to see you. Thanks for your perspective.
Thank you very much.